all in the family. There's nothing you can do about it. The son of this house, by the name of Dr. Frank Thomas, gifted preacher and teacher, preached a series of sermons about the Lord's Prayer about 10 years ago, and did a unique book published by Chalice Press that spoke to the Lord's Prayer in times like these, where he raised the Lord's Prayer as a prayer to pray post 9/11, prayer of distress and cynicism, and the prayers of hope and healing. And he tells a parable, a story that I believe is relevant to our text, that I want to share a portion of it, the theme of it, to give you an idea of what this Our Father is all about. Just take a portion of what Frank has written and rewritten this in a manner that will be relevant to us on this day. The story goes this way. I received an invitation, unlike any invitation that I have ever received. It was written on a piece of paper that was embroidered with intricate tapestry and magnificent designs. The front of the envelope had my name on it, not typed, but handwritten with the most astonishing penmanship imaginable, as if the writer was part musician and calligrapher simultaneously. Each letter seemed to dance and sway into the next, and I flipped over the invitation and looked at the fact that there was a seal as the envelope was closed. It was the seal pressed in wax, the seal of the king. A letter from the king. I carefully opened the letter. The king desired my presence in his chambers. The invitation was my invitation. All I needed to get into the king's palace was to hold up my invitation, to say that the king invited me to his chambers, to the palace. And even if I lost my invitation, all of the guards already had my name in their books. So the doors would be open for me when I made my way to the palace. I was invited to see the king. Now what was so striking is that I was invited a sinner. I was invited an outcast. I was invited a peasant. I was invited a foreigner. I was invited someone who in many ways was not worthy in any shape or form to stand in front of the king. And so I quickly RSVP'd, and I made my way to the palace and was greeted by a host. The guards did not search me. There was no TSA security. They just said, "Come on in. We know who you are." But interestingly enough, that everybody knew my name. When I went through the front door, they knew my name. Up the steps, they knew my name. Everybody knew my name. They knew I was coming. The host led me into the inner court and opened some grand doors, and standing in the doorway was the king. Immediately, I began to cry, unable to hold back any emotion, because I was in the presence of royalty. I was in the presence of the one who controlled all the land and all of the world. I was in the presence of the king. I fumbled and stumbled and stammered, trying to say something, but I could not hold back my tears. I was in the presence of the king. I was not worthy to be in the presence of the king. The king stated, as I was calling him king, as sire, all of those royal names, the king interrupted me and said, "Do not call me king, do not call me Lord. From now on, you are to call me Father." He was offering me the ultimate intimacy by saying, "Call him Father." He explained that this was the ultimate act of intimacy. He was offering it to me. Father is different from Lord. Father is different from king. Father is different from creator. When the night becomes heavy upon your soul and you're caught between the desert of darkness and the ocean of pain, you don't call on king, you call on your Father. The name that runs through your psyche, it is hardwired to expel from your lungs. All I had to do was say, Father. He was adopting me at that moment. That means that he made the choice to love me. That when you adopt somebody, it says, I choose to love you. It says that I bring you into my family and nothing can expel you from my family. He adopted me. I was a part of the family. He made a choice to love me, not because of my profound record, my great ability, but something he saw in me. And as he finished his words, servants came in and they put on new vestments, had a new robe, had new shoes, even had a signet ring. A ring that no matter where I went, if I showed it, it means that I was a child of the king. I was promised to the king. And I walked around the palace, and I kept saying, my father hooked me up with new clothes. My father gave me shoes on my feet. My father provided for me, and now I was able to stay in the palace because my father adopted me, that the palace was my house too. Even though I didn't build it, it was my home. Even though my hands did not place any bricks upon the palace, it was my home. And I said, it's my father, my father. I love saying my father. He was my father. Then I looked around and I noticed I wasn't the only one at the party. That there were other people walking around in fine garments just like me. They had the same ring on and the same garments, the same shoes. They looked good, but I thought I was special. I thought I was the only one. Then I started looking around, and I saw that other people were talking about my father. Somebody walked up to me and said, isn't it wonderful how good our Father is? How amazing our Father is? But when I looked at them, I remembered them from down the street and the kind of things that they got into. I didn't think they belonged at the party. But they were saying, our Father. Wait a minute, it's my Father. I know some of the stuff you've done. I know some of the things that you've been involved in. I know I've had some sins, but I'm not on the level that you have been on. And you got the nerve to say, our Father, he's my Father. It's not our Father. I know you've been on drugs. How can he be your Father? I know you sleep with everybody who walks by your house. How can he be your Father? You've got 4 babies, 3 fathers. How can he be your father? You gambled away the college fund. How can he be your father? And then I looked around and I saw some people who were not from my denomination. I saw some Baptist folk in the corner, some Methodist folk over there, Unitarians hiding over there talking, and Presbyterians and Lutherans, Pentecostals, Apostolics. I saw all types of people, and they kept talking about our Father. I thought he was my Father. He's my Father. Then I saw some people who didn't look like me. They didn't have the same color nor the hair texture. They looked different from me. And they were saying, our Father. They were lighter, some darker. They were different, some taller, some shorter. They were all saying, our Father. Then I saw some people who were just different. I did not understand. They were from different lands. He cannot be your father. You are divorced. He cannot be your father. You are an addict. He cannot be your father. You are a lesbian. He cannot be your father. You are drunk. He cannot be a father. You sleep with everybody. How can he be your father? I've seen your record. And I kept talking, and a woman walked up to me, and she was crying. I thought she was crying because she knew that she didn't belong there. But she knew what was about to happen to me. As I was going on my tirade about whose father, and it was my father, the servants came in, took my ring, took my robe, took my shoes, and escorted me out of the party. They said, you can't call him Father anymore. You can call him King. You can call him Lord. You can call him Creator, but no longer is he your Father. Because you didn't realize that your Father invited you to his party. And what this text simply tells us, the reason that Jesus tells us to say our Father, If you insist on our Father to the exclusion of others, you will be escorted from the party. You cannot call people by their old names created by others to dismiss or define them. You will know that people are not defined simply by what they do. God sees beyond that particular moment. You cannot define people by their worst acts and activities. God sees beyond that. God does not speak only to you through your exclusive connection with God. We all have a connection with God. And one of the things that is here in this text and this parable is simply this: stop worrying about who is at the party and be thankful you're at the party. Stop worrying about who's saved and be thankful that you've been saved. You don't have the right to determine someone else's salvation, because if we were to look back on our own record, we could be deleted from the book of life. But thank God for our Father, that our Father includes you and our Father includes me, that our Father includes us. That when we pray our Father, that we are praying with inclusivity. But our Father also forces us to expand our theology. That when you say our Father, you see, we realize that our faith is not solely singular, but is plural. It is not homogeneous, but it forces me to live and enter into other communities. Let me see if I can break it down this way. It is more than our tradition. Where God is present, more than just the UCC tradition, more than just the black tradition. We go to Chautauqua every year, and people ask me, how do you handle it? I mean, the music is so different, it's so challenging, and it can be challenging, and the folk don't say amen, because usually myself, Monica, and the kids, we are the only people of color that are there. That is why I'm thankful when the choir comes, and they show up to Chautauqua when they come, but they say, how can you handle it? I said, because God is not exclusive to my tradition. That they may sing a little bit different. They may sit back in the pew when one is speaking, but yet the presence of God can still be found. And you are a mighty small person if you can only find God in your particular corner of the world. Don't you know God created the entire world? Whether you are in Illinois or whether you are in India, you can find that God is still working there. Whether you are in South Africa or you are on the south side, you can find God there. That when you open your eyes in the morning and see the beauty of God's creation, you can see that God is operating there. God is bigger than our denomination. God is bigger than our traditions. Find God in different places, and find God in different, our Father. But here is the thing, I simply want to close with this. That the reason that we say our Father is that if you've been invited to the party, it's because of the King. You see, if you've been invited to the party, one of the things of having proper etiquette when you're invited to a party is you don't complain about the other guests. Because you did not make the guest list. So you don't have the right to raise the question about why they invited so-and-so. Because as you are raising that question, someone's raising the question about you. Why did they invite you to the first place? And what should really happen is you should be so excited that you were allowed to come to the party in the first place. After you look back over your own resume before you decided to RSVP, and the fact that God let you into the party, you should be so busy thanking the King that he let you into the party that you shouldn't be worried about other people who are at the party.